In this portion of an interview with Esther Levens of Democracy Under Attack and Clare Lopez of the Center for Security Policy, Ms. Lopez summarizes Iran's involvement with the Arab Spring and how it may affect the United States.
I see. And do you think the United States government can defend its decisions to extend diplomatic recognition to the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt and then al-Qaeda leadership that has just taken power in Libya and fail to declare the mullahs in Tehran, the whole regime, illegitimate?
You know, it's difficult to understand, looking from the outside, how the United States government could come to such decisions as the ones you just mentioned, Esther. The recognition, the explicit diplomatic recognition of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt. And let's recall, not only did the Supreme Guide of the Muslim Brotherhood in Egypt, Mohammed Badi, explicitly declare war against the United States, as well as our ally Israel last year. But the very motto of the Muslim Brotherhood remains: Allah is our objective, the Prophet is our leader, the Quran is our law, jihad is our way, and dying in the way of Allah is our highest hope or aspiration. That is their motto. How does the United States declare diplomatic relations with an entity that so clearly is at war with us? Or likewise in Libya. We saw photos just about 1 week ago, I think it was very early November, the black flag of jihad and the flag of al-Qaeda is flying over the courthouse in Benghazi. Benghazi, of course, is the city of Libya where the revolution broke out. But it's flying over the courthouse. That is so significant. That is the place of law of Libya, of Benghazi. And the black flag of jihad now flies over it. How does the United States grant recognition to these entities, knowing that they're antithetical to the United States, our Constitution, and everything our society stands for? The only answer that I can give is that our own government is so deeply penetrated by the Muslim Brotherhood that, in effect, national security decisions about the Middle East and about the Muslim Brotherhood literally are in the hands of the Muslim Brotherhood in America today.
I'm wondering how to get this information to the members of Congress and, more importantly, the candidates running for president, whose feet should be held to the fire on some of these amazing issues. It's our future and our survival.
Absolutely. I think it's critically important that the candidates now competing for the Republican nomination for president understand these issues, be briefed on these issues, whichever one emerges as the candidate. But at this point, I think if it's possible to get the briefing to all of them, and as well, I think to key members of Congress. For instance, on the Intelligence Committee or the Homeland Security Committee in the House of Representatives, and the key Senate leaders as well, committee leaders and so forth. Certainly the invitation is an open one. I and colleagues of mine who also know this information and are extremely concerned about it, as are you and as am I, stand ready to offer briefings to any of the congressional candidates or congressional members or the candidates for president who can make time for it. And we wouldn't have to take an entire hour. We could tailor it to whatever their time constraints permit.
Consider that in whatever way we can, and perhaps arrive at some conclusions fairly soon. Do you have any other thoughts that you would like to convey?
Well, I think maybe I would just conclude by saying that as we await on this date, today is the 6th of November, 2011, as we await the publication next week, we're being told perhaps Tuesday, the 8th of November, of the latest report from the IAEA, that's the International Atomic Energy Agency of the United Nations, its latest report on the Iranian nuclear weapons program. Speculation swirls about Israel's position and whether it will again take the initiative. as absolutely is permitted under international law, the right to anticipatory self-defense if Israel will mount a military strike against Iran's nuclear weapons facilities. As all of that is swirling around us in the news, I think it behooves us to think long and carefully about this regime in Tehran. We know now what it has been involved in, the worst attack against the American homeland, certainly since Pearl Harbor, and so many other attacks against American citizens, civilians and military alike to this day in Afghanistan and Iraq. Are we willing, knowing that regime, knowing its jihadist ambitions, knowing that its own constitution commits it to the export of the revolution, knowing that its own constitution commits it to spreading jihad? Jihad is warfare to spread Islam, according to Islamic law. Knowing that that's the regime in power in Tehran, the question before us is, are we going to allow this regime to acquire a deliverable nuclear weapons capability? If we think that things are bad now and that what Iran has done up until now is horrific, what is it going to be like if they can demonstrate a nuclear weapons capability? And they may already have nuclear weapons. It's certainly been 20-some years that they've been working on their nuclear weapons program. It's nearly inconceivable that that length of time has passed and they haven't succeeded in making at least one or two nuclear warheads, although they have not openly tested them yet. But Israel cannot take the chance that they do or they don't, or speculate that it's all bluster and bravado. Israel has to take the threats of genocide seriously. Israel has to defend itself. That's the first responsibility of a sovereign nation state, is to defend its existence and defend its people and population. And if the world community is not prepared to do something about what the IAEA is going to reveal in its latest report about Iran's nuclear weapons program, then we see Israel standing alone, and as it must and as it is obligated to do, it will have to again mount a military strike in anticipatory self-defense, as it has done previously in Iraq and has previously done in Syria against nuclear installations in those countries. But that would be, I think, a shame. I think it would be far more effective if the world community would unite and stand with Israel in its moment of need again, in a moment when it is threatened existentially by this regime in Tehran.
Thank you so very much, Clare Lopez. Your information is overwhelming. And now that we know the world, as well as the families of the victims of 9/11, now that we know about Iran, I think that action has to be taken. Thank you so much for this illuminating interview.
My pleasure, Esther, and thanks for having me.